Hi, welcome to the Business Class ESL Breakroom. We're a company of passionate language trainers and coaches. We're here to share ideas to improve our skills and strengthen the training community. Come in for some inspiration, leave with tips to apply to your sessions today. Hi, and welcome to the ESL Breakroom. We are joined today by Rob Howard, who many of you already know. He's one of the joint coordinators of IATEFL Besig. He's also president of IATEFL Poland, as well as an incredibly experienced trainer, teacher, trainer, and speaker. But today he's with us in his role as author, as his book One-to-One, an updated and practical guide to teaching, written with Andrzej Stesik, has just been released and is available on Amazon. So we've asked him here today to talk to us about giving one-to-one sessions, which is quite different from group. So we'd love to, first of all, welcome you, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sue, and hello to everybody out there.
Yeah, and I'd love to ask you about your inspiration for the book. You know, what prompted you to write it and collaborate on it?
Well, it was actually interesting because I was on Besig as joint web and online coordinator. And we had a conference in Warsaw for the IATEFL Poland Besig. And Andrzej was giving a talk, and I was sitting there watching him. And he was talking about teaching one-to-one. And this goes back, I think, well, pre-pandemic. So it was probably like 2018, something like that. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about how, there was only one really good book written on one-to-one, which has been out of print for years. And it was written back in the 80s, I believe it was. And he jokingly, broke out of his talk and said, Rob, you ought to write a book on teaching one-to-one. And I laughed and said, maybe I will someday. And time went by, and during the pandemic, I believe, the idea first started again. He called me up and he said, Rob, remember that book I talked about? Let's write it together. And that's how it started.
I love that.
Yeah, it was a great story. And I said, okay, that sounds good. And we worked on it for about a year. Mm-hmm. And, had all the formatting and the editing done by Dorothy Zemock from Ways Goose Press. She just finished a bit ago. And we just got it up on Amazon. So it's available for people. And I have to say, if anybody's here from Greece, just the other day, we now have exclusive distribution in Greece and in Cyprus with international publishers. Okay. So we've got a lot of things coming up the end of August in Athens and Thessaloniki, and it'll be on the booth for international publishers. So we're excited about that.
Very cool. Very cool. So what I would love to ask you also is, I like how you said, there's no one way, but a better way. What do you think is key to a successful one-to-one session?
Well, there is no one thing that is the key to success, but there are some basic things. Number one, I feel good orientation for your student from the very beginning, giving them an idea of what they should expect, because teaching one-to-one can be a lot different from what you experience as a teacher in a group class, and also what a student would normally encounter. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more intensive because all the attention is on them. Yeah. And they have to be ready for that. Now, fortunately, most people are used to having Zoom meetings and Skype meetings, so they know the technology better than when I started 20 years ago working online. But orienting them on how things work, how you're going to work, how you're going to teach is important. And then from there, building rapport.
Yeah.
And, this is so important as a teacher, with any kind of student. And I think, unfortunately, if you listen to the quote experts from the old school, I'll tell you, no, as a teacher, don't get close to your student. You're not their friend, you're their teacher. And I say, you know what? You just missed a lot of opportunities because you need that rapport to keep things going. A great example, one of my students said to me today, we were talking and he said, we've gone way past the fact that it's teacher student and we've been friends. And that's why I've been with you for 4 years. And he was a C2 level when he started with me, but
Wow.
it's just this continuing in the advice and, the camaraderie and the comfort that they feel. And this is really important. And then I could go through every aspect of it, the needs analysis, the feedback, the assessment, mutual respect, modeling, all in the book.
Excellent. Yeah, no, you're speaking my language, pardon the pun, but
well, we speak with the same accent too, right?
That's right. And so here's a question. So if I were a new ESL teacher or trainer, how can this book help me?
Well, I think it will help you because number one, there's a few different aspects. One-to-one, as I say, is different for most people, especially dealing outside of the classroom. One thing that you'll find with one-to-one classes, and I talk about this in the book, the best plan is no plan. Because, as a classroom teacher or a large group teacher, we do lesson plans and we plan everything out. And when I started doing, online and one-to-one, I was naive and did the same thing. But what happens is the student comes to class and says, oh, I have to write an email for tomorrow. Oh, I have to give a presentation. Oh, I have a meeting with a Chinese person. And there goes the lesson plan out the window.
Yep.
And this is different for people coming in, being flexible, being adaptable quickly is important to learn. And you need to know you have to feel comfortable with that. So we help new teachers with that. And with the steps of like needs analysis, we give a lot of examples of forms. Also things like if you're a freelancer, working with a contract, I give a good example of a freelance contract, which is so important. And people were scurrying looking for a good contract because you do need to set the rules and the ground rules right up front as a business person, because you are now a business person as a freelancer. And then, all the steps that you need and everything you should do along the way. So that's good for somebody who's new to the business and coming into it.
That's amazing. It sounds more like a toolkit than just a manual for teaching training. It's really a toolkit.
There was a little thing that I took off here. It was what was it? The new handbook or new guide to teaching, which we took off just to make the cover a little cleaner. But that's the idea behind it. It gives you all the tools you need, and even some you probably haven't thought about. And for example, we try and cover teaching face-to-face and teaching online.
That's interesting. Well, what's the difference there for you? What do you think is the thing to know? That
a lot is just logistics. I really, I've had this argument with teachers for years that teaching online, honestly, is no different from teaching face-to-face. How many people do you know that you talk to that you've actually never met? But you and I have talked many times, and I feel like, we grew up the next town from each other. Oh, wait, we did. But you know what I mean?
I don't see that.
Yeah, you can still feel this closeness with online when you realize that, this is the new reality. And people say to me that, oh, but it's so impersonal talking to a person online. And I say, there was a thing for years called the telephone. Was that impersonal? It's just a modern telephone call.
Yeah.
So, I don't feel there's much of a difference. The only thing is, we can't hug at the beginning of class, and I can't bring, or you can't bring me an apple or cookies, as your teacher, So that's the only real difference. But logistically, how to sit, how to, be there in front of your student, not being too close, not being too far, not being adversarial. Like, you don't want to sit across from a table. That seems like you're competing. Sit, next to each other at a table. And when you're working online, I talk about things like the lighting, the microphone, the camera, things like that, even the background. I've seen such mistakes, made. I'm sure have seen it too. Doing podcasts, you get somebody with a window behind them and you can't see their face.
Right.
So things like this are covered.
It's great that you did that, because I find it interesting. I've gone back to face-to-face for certain sessions, and it is a bit awkward because I use my computer as a main tool. Then I don't want to sit opposite them. And then sometimes there's nothing to project what I've got. And then I'm projecting to somebody who's just sitting next to me. It's a bit odd.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something to think about. So thanks for it's really something to think about. So let's take it to the other extreme for an experienced trainer, and they've got all their materials, they've got everything they're used to. Why should they or how could this book enrich their sessions?
Well, even being experienced, and with Andre and I, have different styles, where I'm very outgoing, very exuberant. I speak my mind. Andre is more reserved. But we both, in discussing things, we both have the same goal in mind. And there's some things that he brought in and some things I brought in that were even eye-openers to us. And we've both been teaching way over 20 years each. There's always something new to learn, or there's always something, quote, new to be reminded of. Think back of the things we did 20 years ago. Well, not you were too young, but 20 years ago. And, we forget, I used to do that. And why don't I do that anymore? Plus, there's Andre and I both come from business English background. And this isn't about business English. And, it's not a business English book. But really, when you're thinking about why the student is learning English, the majority are doing it for the workplace. And this will help you to feel a little bit more comfortable with dealing with the problems in the materials of the student, as opposed to just doing general English. So there's a lot there for everybody. And we tried to be as thorough as we could on every aspect of teaching one-to-one that we could come up with. So I think you'll find plenty for an experienced teacher in there too.
Oh, that's great. It's always great to have a new, fresh resource. Can you say anything about the speaking activities? I'm always looking for good speaking activities, because it's hard with one person to get them talking. And
well,
yeah,
this is it. And this is where the idea came up. It's the activities for speaking, which is right here. We were thinking about it because what's the problem for most freelancers? Number one, and since we moved online, the first thing you hear from a student is, what course book are we going to use? Now, in most cases, when you're working one-to-one, you're not going to work with a course book.
Right.
And students are like, what? No, I need a book in front of me. And then the other thing is, if the student doesn't bring you stuff and you're looking for your own materials, producing materials for 20 to 30 different students every week is a lot of work. And most teachers, unfortunately, don't do it. Where I'll speak for myself and for Andre, because the majority of our classes are with higher level students. And we don't need to, go over the basics. So what we're doing is we're working with them to build confidence and corrections in their speaking abilities. So I was thinking, how could I help with this? And you remember the Raymond Murphy books, the grammar books. And, we all used to use those in the beginning. And I was like, the concept of you can just flip through the pages and you don't have to go in order. You use what you need at the time. I said, that's a brilliant idea. How can I incorporate that and get something interesting? And then what I also thought of is, we do have limited time face to face with our student. How can I take advantage of, the flipped classroom idea? And that's how I came up with the book. And the idea of this is the book number one is just, as it says, I will share the screen and show you a little sample. Here's the sample. And the teacher's book here, what it does is it'll take one subject, let's say. And here I show world-changing inventions. And the whole idea, there's 5 or 6 main questions that are asked that are pertinent to this subject matter. Now, the idea is, as a teacher, you're going to assign, okay, next week, we're going to work on chapter 42, okay? Then the student who has the student book, which is basically the same on the left side, but different on the right, the student will then go and they have an opportunity to prepare and go through the questions, jot down some answers, look for phrases. If they don't understand, they have time to do some research. Now, this goes back to, we do draft writing. We work on writing. We never do draft speaking. And this gives the student an opportunity to, during the week, work on what their answers are going to be and think about it. So when they come to class, I'm not wasting time in class. And we start talking about what the student came up with. And then as a teacher, I can make corrections, help with pronunciation, help with grammar, structure. I can offer some more useful vocabulary. And this is really great for building confidence. And you'll notice on the side, the teacher's book allows the teacher to put notes on what worked well and what needs improvement and where to go the next time. And the student book is a place for the student to make notes on what they've learned from the teacher.
Perfect.
So the idea of this book has 50 chapters with 50 different ideas that they can work with. And we designed it that it's perfect to use from A2 to C2, because they'll understand it at A2. Their answer, of course, will be more basic, but the teacher makes the adjustment in the class of how intricate they get involved. So, for instance, if the student is an A2, they may answer in simple past tense, where the teacher for a higher level can be pointing out, okay, maybe this is a good opportunity to use present perfect and explain why. So the idea, it's great for lazy teachers. No, we're not lazy, but
we're busy. We're busy.
And we can't always make this attention. And working with a course book isn't necessarily the best for these new breeds of students that we're getting working one-to-one. It's great for a group session, not necessarily one-to-one. So with this, we figure that with the book, basically how it works is the teacher will buy the teacher's book. And then when there's students who come and say, what do I use for a course book? Give them the Amazon link for the student book. And the students get the book and have a physical book right there to work with. So it's an idea I had. We'll see how it goes, and we're planning on doing an entire series where we'll get somebody who works with IT to help formulate the questions for a book specifically on IT, one for medical, one for flight. So, we'll have specific books that people can work with depending on what their clients' needs are.
Fabulous. I love the simple format, the black and white. You can photocopy it, reuse it with your different students and keep your notes, and fantastic.
That's the idea. And, it's nice knowing that you have materials ready if you need it. And students feel much more comfortable if they're able to look beforehand. It's like, here's a test. Now, and I often thought of this. I worked for a course in Brazil, and they gave oral exams. And I always said with the oral exam, the success would be much better if we actually gave them the questions to think about beforehand.
Yeah.
And they said, whoa, but some people are going to go out and they're going to research, and they'll now chat GPT to come up with a good answer. And I said, yeah, but they did work to produce an answer. What's wrong with that? It's the same as doing, draft writing and rewriting and everything else. So I'm bringing that into speaking. And think about it. Well, I didn't practice, but you and I, you let me know on the questions. So I knew what questions you were going to ask. I had time to prepare. Makes for a much better presentation. And don't we do this in real life?
We do when we can, right? We don't want to put people on the spot, and you want to build confidence. You don't want to have them leaving your session devastated. You want them to feel good. Right.
Yeah, and so this is it. So it's a great help for the teacher, but I think it's an even greater help for the student because it makes them feel at ease. And that's how we want them coming into our classes.
Yeah, want them feeling safe.
That's it.
Key. Well, this is super, super good news. So tell us the best way to get a hold of the book and from where we are.
If you're in Greece, International Publishers, where I'll be sending over, we just finalized yesterday, so I'll be sending these over and they'll be available in print there. Other than that, if you're outside of Greece, the one-to-one book is available print on demand on Amazon.
Great.
And you can get that print on demand. I didn't do, there's also an ebook of this. So you can get the ebook for less money. It's not as good. It feels nice, shiny.
Of course, nothing better than a real book, right? Nothing better.
And nothing better, yeah. And the activity book is also on Amazon. You buy the teacher book. And in the back of the teacher book, it tells you the link that you can send to your students so they can go and then buy the student book. And these are print on demand only from Amazon. So usually I just ordered from Germany, and usually they print it and you have it in 4 days.
Oh, that's quick. Okay.
So usually, you meet your first class, you tell your student buy the book, and they'll probably have it for the second class. So
there's the one-to-one itself, then there's a separate activity book.
Correct.
And a separate student
This
book.
is for the teacher to learn, the theory and everything that you should do for teaching.
Great.
And then, when you are teaching, here's a great help for you. And you can even use this for small groups. We designed it with that in mind, that the whole idea is starting a conversation. And we tried to pick 50 common type conversations that people would have, not, and you go shopping with Aunt Sally, a little more pithy than that. And what we did is there's 4 or 5, depending on the question, 4 or 5 main questions, And then there's a challenge question, which is the real deep thinking. If you want to talk about, people really need to sit down and think about what their answer is going to be. And if I asked you, for instance, let's see, what do you think the next big invention is going to be, Sue?
Oh, goodness, got to be something around ChatGPT or AI, something or other.
Yeah, not a very great answer, was it? Think as a teacher. Because you didn't have time to think about it.
Right.
Now, if you had time to think about that, you would probably give me a much fuller, much more complete, much more in-depth answer. And that's the whole idea. Give them a chance to succeed and practice beforehand. And then you as the teacher are acting more like, kind of a mentor or tutor where you're fine-tuning what they talk about. No, it's not ChatGPT. It's pronounced GPT. Okay.
Well, sorry, yeah. I'm giving myself away. You know where I live.
Yeah, I know. No, but just as an example, so you can work with this. And I think what you'll find is that you get a lot more accomplished as a teacher.
Yeah.
And as a student, you feel a lot closer and a lot more in touch with the teacher. And there's, like I say, I've been teaching online for over 20 years. And the biggest problem was always material. Usually, because I'm teaching in business English, they always have a problem. There's always something that comes up that you can talk about, but not always.
Right.
So sometimes you need to spark a conversation. Now, you can do these quickly, use them as a warm-up, or you can spend the entire class on it. It depends on, the level of the student. But the idea is you've got one resource that you can use for everybody. You could probably get away with some A1s with this, but I would recommend A2 up.
A2 and up. Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be more realistic. Just, you don't want them, with a head buried in the dictionary every 5 minutes, trying to figure out every word you ask.
But that sounds great. I love the setting up for success. Setting them up for success is what we want. So that's it. Great, baseline. So
yeah, that's what we're here for.
All right. Well, Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share with us. So we'll
thank you.
Be happy to spread the word. And so if you enjoyed this information, if you think this is going to be helpful, please do put a little like or share the podcast with someone else who might really be able to use the info.
And just before we go, just if you want to get more information on the books itself, let me share it again. It's
someone can find it.
It's an easy website. Okay, it's 1-2-1.be.
All right.
And you can go there, and what this will do is right now, if you click on the books, it'll take you right to the Amazon page. And then what it tells about the books and everything else and the whole concept behind it. If you want to contact me, you can. And soon, probably next week, we'll have the link up here. If you're in Greece, we'll have the link for where you can get it in Greece.
Excellent. Well, that's great to know. Thank you for all that. We'll make sure it's in the link below as well. So, well, Rob, thanks again for joining us, and good luck in Greece. And
great.
We'll see you again in the next installment. Who knows?
Great. Or maybe even in November.
Very likely. Very likely. Working on
it. Very good. Okay.
Take care.
All right. Thanks, Sue.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thanks for joining us in the Business Class ESL Breakroom, the podcast designed to bring business English trainers useful ideas, inspiration, and conversation that motivates. Follow us on Instagram at business_class_language and subscribe to the ESL Breakroom playlist on Spotify, Deezer, or Apple Music for new episodes. See you next time.